Alright, so new haircut. The AC still doesn't work because no one has bothered to turn on the centralized system because apparently it's not hot enough. And also, more importantly, World Cup qualifiers in June have finally finished. We'll first start off with CONMEBOL because things are so damn close with only 4 games to go. Excluding Argentina, who have already qualified, from the highest automatic spot of 2nd to the first spot outside of any qualification of 8th is a gap of just 7 points. Of the teams still in contention, 5th place Paraguay are the only ones to be unbeaten since the end of Copa America last July. They extended their run right from the get-go with a 2-0 win versus Uruguay, and after doubts of even finishing in the playoff spot back in October 2024, Paraguay find themselves just a bit closer to automatically qualifying for the World Cup.
Buen día.
A little bit later, the world would witness Carlo Ancelotti's managerial debut in international football, as his Brazil would face a promising Ecuadorian golden generation led by Mason Mount in a wig. This could turn out to be an absolute classic. Already qualified Argentina barely had to even lift a finger to beat an absolutely shambolic Chile side. Over to Colombia, Luis Diaz was suspended for their first game, and that was a huge loss for El Cafeteros as their finishing went from subpar to absolutely non-existent. Colombia had 15 shots in this game, and not a single one was on target. Finally, to finish off this match day was a battle between playoff spot holders Venezuela and 8th place Bolivia. Just 1 point separated these two very hungry nations that have been able to hold their own in such a grueling campaign. For us World Cup qualifier sickos, this could turn out to be a real classic. 25 minutes later, Solomon Rondon doubled the lead, and Venezuela would go on to win 2-0 and extend the gap to 4 points. But this is CONMEBOL qualifiers. Nothing is set in stone until the final whistle of the final match day. And even then, it still isn't. In Bolivia's next game, they once again call upon a young duckling who has come up big numerous times in their campaign. The sole altitude alpha himself, Miguel Terceros. He creates another moment of brilliance, putting the Bolivians up 1-0 after just 5 minutes. Now shining brighter than the sun these fans could practically touch from this altitude, Terceros blinds the keeper into a mistake, and Bolivia closed this game off with another young talent. And with Venezuela losing to Uruguay, everything returns to the way it was as the gap shrinks to 1 point once again. Just above them is 6th place Colombia, who are as vulnerable as they've ever been in this campaign because of their ongoing 5-game winless streak. Not exactly great going into an away game in Argentina, but like Bolivia, Colombia called upon their savior, Luis Diaz.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
After being absent for their first game, Colombia's king single-handedly brings back the national team's attacking threats. And more, as in the 24th minute, the Liverpool forward dribbles past 1, 2, 3, 4, and before you can even comprehend what you've just witnessed, he puts it past Emi Martinez. A-R-T. Unfortunately though, the defense could not hold off Argentina's fronts forever, and Colombia would have to settle for a 3rd straight draw. Carlo Ancelotti finally gets his first win as a head coach of Brazil, and it's a big one as he puts an end to Paraguay's 9-game unbeaten run. And because of Venezuela and Bolivia's shenanigans this month, this actually locks Brazil into the big dance. Yes, after all this shit we talked, and will continue to talk, Brazil still qualified for the World Cup with 2 games to spare. Speaking of which, Ecuador also booked their ticket to North America next year after a 0-0 draw with Peru. That leaves just 3 automatic spots and 1 playoff spot left to claim, with just 1 more window left to determine it. Thanks to their wins, both Uruguay and Paraguay can't be eliminated from this phase of qualifiers, but mathematically they can still fall into the playoff spot. Uruguay has only won 2 qualifiers since last July, but their last 2 opponents are 9th and 10th place, so they should be okay. Paraguay, it's a little tougher, with Ecuador at home and then Peru away. But even if these two fail to collect any points, Venezuela earning 6 of 6 points next window has less of a chance of happening than the Washington Wizards winning more than 20 games next season. You'll see why. Current playoff holders Venezuela have a 1-point cushion between them and 8th place Bolivia. It does help their chances that their goal difference is way better though. For both of these teams, realistically looking for a second chance to qualify for the World Cup either for the first time since 1994 or ever, it's gonna be really tough. Venezuela's last 2 games are Argentina away and rivals Colombia at home. Mano tengo fe, I guess. On the other hand, Bolivia's last 2 games see them facing Colombia away and then Brazil at home. Now, by the off chance that these two shit the bed, which is likely. Ninth place Peru still has a chance if they can win both their games by multiple goals, which is not very likely. Oh yeah, didn't really know where to put this, but 10th place Chile were officially eliminated by Bolivia, so I'll let the editor deal with them. Back to 6th place Colombia though, they still have the possibility of missing out entirely, but that's only if they fail to earn a single point in September. Their last 2 games are Bolivia at home and Venezuela away. As long as Luis Diaz doesn't die, I think they're good. Oh yeah, one more thing. The first match day of June saw 0 red cards. The East has officially stolen our beautiful CONMEBOL. However, in the second match day, we saw 4 red cards. One was just a silly yellow, one guy got Xabi Alonso'd in Bolivia, Chile. In the same game, someone didn't even attempt to go for the ball on this tackle. And finally in Argentina, Colombia, Enzo Fernandez kicked a guy in the face. Vintage CONMEBOL. Now, while South Americans are trying to take each other's souls, data brokers right now are taking your name, address, even social security number, and selling it across the web. This can lead to spam and even scam texts like this one I got from the North Carolina Department of Transportation, using a phone number from the Philippines. Even worse though, you could be victim to identity theft, and that is a genuine pain to deal with. However, Incogni makes sure to put a stop to this like it's Tyrese Halliburton versus the Knicks. Incogni reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requests your personal information be removed, and handles any objections from their side. Now more than ever, this is important because with the age of AI, scammers are even using technology that can mimic your voice to trick your own family or even criminalize you. Technology is only going to make it harder to see through these disguises, which is why Incogni also does repeated removals to make sure you're not a guinea pig to these scammers. And luckily for you, you can save 60% off Incogni's annual plan. All you gotta do is click the link displayed here and use code MACWELL, and this is risk-free with Incogni's 30-day money-back guarantee. So take back control of your personal information and sign up for Incogni today. Over to Asia now, where each team played their last matches of this round. In Group A, Iran had already qualified in the previous window, meaning next year will be their 4th straight appearance. It also means that their coach, who doesn't know what he's doing and refuses to play anyone above the age of 30, is still in charge. Anyways, Uzbekistan with their 0-0 draw versus the UAE saw them qualify for the World Cup for the first time ever, a big moment for the whole nation and Central Asian football. And for this amazing achievement, the government gifted each player a new car. Meanwhile, the UAE are gifted with another chance. Nothing new there. A single point was enough to clinch one of the 2 spots in the 4th round, and Qatar would seal the other thanks to their 1-0 win versus Iran and a 2-all draw between 5th and 6th. Over to Group B, mathematically speaking, any of the teams in the top 4 could have automatically qualified at the beginning of this month. Even better, they would play each other to begin this month. South Korea, despite their flaws and troubles throughout the campaign, beat Iraq to qualify, while Jordan would make easy work of Oman to clinch and become the 2nd Asian team this window to make history and qualify for their first ever World Cup. A tough pill for Iraq to swallow after how narrowly they missed out, but they at least managed to lock in a 4th round spot after a statement victory away in Jordan to close off the window. Oman was hoping to secure a second chance too, but so was an even hungrier Palestine side, who wanted nothing more than to appear on the world stage in front of the very leader who plans to wipe every Palestinian in Gaza off the planet for a resort. Needing to win both of their games to stay alive, Palestine beat Kuwait in their first fixture of the month. Then in the 48th minute versus Oman, Oday Karoub's got Palestine dreaming big as he scores his first ever goal for his country. However, in the dying minutes, the referee gets a call from Netanyahu himself and punishes Palestine for the most blatant dive I've ever seen in my life. The wild thing is this shit went to VAR and still was deemed a penalty. Anyways, just like that, heartbreak for Palestine, absolute relief for Oman, who just barely finished in the other 4th round spot. Finally, in Group C, with Japan already qualified, this left one more automatic spot for this round. And current holder 2nd place Australia wasted no time making sure that shit was theirs at the end of the window. They beat a bunch of Japanese teams with a last-minute winner at home and then came back from 1-0 down away in Saudi Arabia to shithouse yet another World Cup qualification. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, thanks to a win versus Bahrain, will have a second chance in the 4th round, as will Indonesia, unfortunately, after their 1-0 win versus China. At least I got to hate watch them versus Japan, I guess. So some things have happened since this video was recorded, including the fact that I was last minute, an hour before it was going to happen, invited to a Football Manager League by by Zealand himself. This is a whole league with 19 other people, and I don't play Football Manager, like, at all. Actually, I've never had a legitimate save, but I am streaming every single game that I play in this league, and if I'm not wrong, the next stream scheduled is Thursday, 1 p.m. EST, 6 p.m. BST. All this will be live on my Twitch, so give that a follow. Back to the region, where because of the Nations League, everything is gonna get progressively more confusing with every window. Once again, the first 6 groups have still yet to kick a ball, so we will start this with Group G. Poland was on top of the group to begin June, with Finland not too far away. The two played each other in Helsinki, and Finland would prevail with a 2-1 win that sees them dethrone the Poles. For Poland, this was their only qualifier of the window, and yet still, this was the most eventful June of any other team in this group. It all started when Robert Lewandowski wasn't called up this month after he told the head coach he was too exhausted from his season with Barcelona. A few days later, the head coach then announced Piotr Zielinski as the new captain. Lewandowski felt betrayed by this and vowed to never play for the national team again so long as this head coach was in charge. And as this is Poland's all-time leading scorer by a country mile, this was practically a death sentence, and after Poland's loss to Finland, the head coach resigned in shame. Also, remember when I hinted at some Lithuanian hype for absolutely no reason?
We don't talk about that.
Also, the Netherlands finally began their World Cup 2026 campaign, and in style, as they beat Finland away and then gave their former PM a nice sending off by kicking down Malta 8-0. The joke is, your prime minister's name is Dick Schoof. Or at least, that was the prime minister, I guess. So after the month of June, Finland currently lead Group G with 7 points, but that doesn't really mean much as the Dutch with 2 games in hand are already a point below the Finns. Poland will hope a new head coach brings some better success because, while still early, they sit right outside the playoff spot. Over in Group H, Bosnians were in disbelief that they no longer had to hold on to their 2014 success like it was a man thinking he actually had a chance with his rental girlfriend. And thanks to 90-year-old Edin Dzeko, the Bosnians remain top of the group after winning their only game of the window versus San Marino.
I just want to say that I'm proud to be Bosnian. One old man with a county jail. Boss on that city started to be.
Just like the Dutch though, the Austrians finally got their qualification campaign up and running. They made easy work of who everyone thought would be a lock for the playoffs, and then capped off the window by bagging 4 goals in the first 30 minutes versus San Marino, and then pulling off a football respect moments number 874 by having mercy afterwards. The only other team to get a result was Romania, who managed a 2-0 win versus Cyprus. So after these games, Bosnia, as mentioned before, are still in the automatic spots, while Austria and Romania are just behind tied on points, but both teams are in completely different situations. Austria has a game in hand, and Romania has already played 4 times. Group I started with a banger as Italy began their qualification run versus Norway, and in a matter of 42 minutes, the Norwegians put 3 past the Italians. Just a reminder, the next video essay is about Italy. Gliazzurri was able to bounce back and beat Moldova, but even that wasn't a very convincing victory, as Moldova had 18 shots with 34% of the possession. These 2 results were enough to see Luciano Spalletti relieved of his head coaching duties. Italy's hopes now lay in the hands of oh no.
Sometimes maybe she.
Going back to Norway though, the promised golden generation seems to no longer be some Nordic folktale. With a win versus Estonia, Norway continue their dominance in Group I with 4 wins, 0 draws, and 0 losses. Next we go to Group J, where June had the table looking pretty damn tight, albeit after just 2 games. But none of that mattered anymore because the butcher had finally arrived. Belgium. Against first place North Macedonia, they set the tone for their campaign early on, and then conceded the equalizer in the 86th minute. No worries though, the Belgians in their next game would absolutely torch Wales with 3 goals in the first 28 minutes, and then concede 3 unanswered. Angel made a whole ass song about this capital, and this is how you repay her? Fortunately for Belgium, they still have the guy who hates international football with all his soul, and he saves the national team from another embarrassment. For Wales, this was a fantastic fight considering this team is still suffering from shell shock after the retirement of Gareth Bale. But they'll at least be happy to finish the month with 3 points after a win versus Liechtenstein. Meanwhile, North Macedonia continue to impress so far. Along with their draw with Belgium, they beat Kazakhstan away and as a result are still top with 8 points. Just behind them is Wales in the playoff spot, while Belgium will hope to get things running smoother in the coming months with their 2 games in hand. Group K next, and England would continue their reign at the top after winning their only game of the month versus Andorra. A little bit alarming since it was just a 1-0 result against Andorra, but to be fair, it is still early days for Thomas Tuchel. But who cares about England? No one was waiting for England in June. Everyone was waiting for something even better. Albania versus Serbia. And when it came to the pre-match pettiness, this shit did not disappoint. In these types of competitions, FIFA requires that both flags be displayed in the stadium, but never mentioned anything about the size of the flags.
That's pretty average. I don't know what that's normal size.
Then, the Albanian mascots did nationalistic eagle symbols during Serbia's anthem. And speaking of that anthem, finally though, it was time for kickoff. And this shit was so ass. You know, in all fairness, I do feel like the players were probably fearing for their lives. One wrong tackle, one wrong dribble, you know, any kind of gesture. We could have seen scenes of like 2014 again. So, you know, I get it. Anyways, Albania would finish off the month with a disappointing draw versus Latvia, while Serbia's Aleksandar Mitrovic single-handedly destroyed Andorra. So at the end of June, England are in prime position to automatically qualify. Albania currently sits in the playoff spot, but 1 point behind them with 2 games in hand are their bitter rivals. These two will play each other again in October. Also, Latvia is still in the mix, but I wouldn't really get my hopes up if I were you. And finally, to round off Europe, Group L, which had the top 2 in Czechia and Montenegro battle it out, with Czechia taking the title of King of the Hill. But little did they know, they were in for one rude awakening. Quite honestly, everyone was. Just when you thought it was over for this Croatian generation, they find new ways to prove us all wrong. They annihilated Gibraltar 7-0 and then had multiple players 33 or older put 5 past the so-called group leaders Czechia. Czechia are still in pole position after what had been done to them, but Croatia are just below them licking their chops with 2 games in hand. Tied on points with them is Montenegro, who only played once, and just hanging in there is the Faroe Islands after they collected their first win of the campaign versus Gibraltar. Lastly, we got CONCACAF, who just finished up their second round. In Group A, Honduras won out their remaining fixtures to advance to the next round. Cuba were looking like the ones to advance alongside Honduras, but then out of absolutely nowhere, Bermuda, who started with 1 point this window, pillaged the Cayman Islands and then dropped an RKO on Cuba's World Cup hopes to advance. Group B saw Costa Rica and Trinidad in the top 2. Costa Rica maintained their position with wins versus the Bahamas and Trinidad, while Trinidad just narrowly advanced by a goal difference after beating St. Kitts and Nevis. Group C had Haiti and Curacao level on points, but in terms of quality, this could not be farther from the truth. Curacao destabilized an already unstable Haiti 5-1 to get into the third round. Thankfully for the Haitians though, everyone else was significantly more ass, so they advanced nonetheless. In Group D, Panama won their group without breaking a sweat, and Nicaragua was able to move into the next round with them after beating third place Guyana. Group B was won by a Jamaican side led by Steve McLaren. I'd pay large sums of cash to hear that man say bomboclat. They beat the Virgins of Britain and then closed off the group with 4 of 4 wins versus second place Guatemala. Guatemala took care of their only competition to start June, so they also move on as well. Finally, Group F. The Indonesia of CONCACAF was in first, with surprise guest Puerto Rico rounding off the top 2. They played each other to start the month, with Suriname grabbing all 3 points and a spot in the next round. This opened the door for El Salvador to take second, which they did after beating Anguilla 3-0. But there was still a chance for Puerto Rico on the final day. They just needed to win and see El Salvador lose to Suriname, who have already qualified. That's tough. And so that was your World Cup June qualifiers review. But before we go, quickly, let's review all the teams that qualified in this month. Uzbekistan, South Korea, and Jordan all qualified on June 5th. 5 days later, Australia joined them. And on the same day as the Aussies' 6th straight berth, both Brazil and Ecuador qualified. All these guys now join the US, Mexico, Canada, Japan, New Zealand, Iran, and reigning champions Argentina. This now leaves 35 spots up for grabs, and by the end of the next window in September, we'll be seeing a few more South American teams. But how are you guys feeling about qualifiers? Has your team qualified? Are they close to qualifying? Is there not a chance in hell within the next 100 years they ever qualify? Let me know. But of course, a massive shout out to all our members, including Janos Balas, Lugar BB, Adesan, Brazilian Fury, Jeremiah Osu Ajimang, Valera, Django, Anazir Makalankon, Alex Rod, Slider Kit, Taco Okafan, Kentra Gacha, St. Terrence, Sylvia Citrus, Rashford Enthusiast, Cheesebait, Winder Gel, Finn Likes Rugby More, Davux, The Portugizer, Wise Orange, Polar Protos, Von Fan, Lucian Von Kreuz, Gezeger Specialkiewicz, A Ghostly Owl, Coney Wolves, Lickstab, Matanai, Sketchy Card, Apollo, Congo Jas 1, German Sayu 7, Thrilling ADT 13, Los Milos, The James Braun, Vasinho, Jamie Vardy's 10th Red Bull, Nightwalker, Knapside, Money Cash Hose, Quantavious Pork, Lily Lover, Stewed Monk, Tyler A. Davis, A Red Devil for Life, Tung 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 Sahur, Red Yellow, Kev C, Dominic Griffin, Kyler Krez, Mohammed Al Tanib, Nish, Patrick Barley, Rashford God 5, Raspberry Ale, and Unbroken persona. If you'd like to be a member on the channel, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow my Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you like, follow my Twitch. Now that I'm finally back home, I'm sure we'll be doing at least, you know, a few streams here or there. I'm gonna go take it easy with like July. I don't want to go too crazy, just to like, you know, relax, because I feel a little overwhelmed right now. But until then, I'll see you guys. Italy video essay. Don't forget it. It's coming, I promise.